Josh Friedman in Los Angeles, California, specifically in the community of San Pedro, very close to the port of Los Angeles down that way. I am in front of a home that belongs to Paul Flores. Paul Flores is the lone suspect, or as investigators are calling him, the person of interest in the case of Kristin Smart. Back in 1996, Kristin Smart, and then Cal Poly student, a freshman college student up in San Luis Obispo, California, disappeared, and she has not been found since then. This has been a case that has drawn a lot of attention up in the San Luis Obispo area, but also down here in the Los Angeles area, and even to some extent around the country. In 2020, the search is continuing on for Kristin Smart, and just this morning, Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies served a search warrant at Mr. Flores' home right here. This is the second time in the past 2.5 months that investigators have searched the home. The last time in February, there were FBI here as well. I have not been able to confirm whether or not FBI were here today. For those of you who aren't familiar with the case, I'll catch you up on it. That, as I said, Kristin Smart was a freshman Cal Poly student. Back in May of 1996, she was at an off-campus party, and Mr. Flores was the last person to have seen her, and he says that he walked her back to her dorm room, and that's the last he saw of her. And the case had been cold for a while, but over the past few years, it's been getting a lot more attention. There's been a popular podcast that's been getting a lot of people to focus on the case, and the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, which is the lead agency on the case, has been making it a prerogative to make progress. And just about a couple months back, a few months ago, I think it was in January actually, Denise Smart, the mother of Kristin Smart, gave some indication. She spoke with media saying that it seemed like there was something major that was about to happen soon in the case. Back in February, investigators searched the home of Paul Flores' mother in Arroyo Grande, that's located in San Luis Obispo County, as well as another location in SLO County and one more location which was in Washington State. It is unclear what exactly they're looking for at these other locations, and as well as the home right here. There have been lots of suspicions and theories floated about whether where Kristin Smart's body might be buried. I mean, that's very much unclear to the public. It's unclear whether or not investigators are really onto something in terms of discovering the body and potentially making an arrest. Flores is the only person of interest in the case. He denies actually, I'm not positive what specifically his denial is, but he does maintain his innocence. Now, I've been speaking with neighbors around here and taking a closer look at the property. I don't think I'm supposed to be walking on here, given that you have a setup with this classic truck blocking the driveway, and then there's a private property sign on the window, and there's another, I think it says no loitering sign on the front door. But I did walk up briefly. It appears I'd like to see if I could maybe talk to Mr. Flores, but it appears that he drove off and is not home at the moment. It appears he drove off after the search happened. From what I heard, speaking with neighbors, I heard that this morning Mr. Flores was in his backyard, I believe, as the search was taking place, and was speaking with one person. Sounds like that person, or I was told it was a man. It sounds like that man was some sort of investigator in the case. And what I was also told from the neighbor is that there was a woman walking around the backyard searching for things. I would presume that she was also an investigator. And what I also heard, which is similar to what happened back in February, is that this morning, as the search was happening, or as part of the search was happening, Mr. Flores was detained and put in a law enforcement vehicle. I was told that today it was an SUV, and that he was detained there for some of the time of the search, and then they let him go, and possibly Mr. Flores drove off shortly after that. I've been here for a few hours now. Press have been coming and going throughout the day. I unfortunately haven't run into him, but like I said, I have been speaking to the neighbors, and I'm getting some interesting tidbits from them. For instance, a few of the neighbors describe Mr. Flores as a very quiet man. One or two of them said their only interactions with him are simple things like hi and bye, and that's about it. One of the next door neighbors gave me a more detailed description. I did hear from one person, someone described Mr. Flores as being someone who's not just quiet, but gives off the impression that he's suspicious of everyone, potentially even paranoid. And several, like I said, several of the neighbors, in a sense, say that he's just very quiet, and they don't have much in the way of interactions with him. I also heard that rarely anyone is over there visiting, or here, I should say, and I can give you a little more of a look at the property right here. I'm hearing from neighbors that rarely are there any visitors over here. He has a couple dogs, but usually there are no people over here. But the two searches that have now taken place over the past 2.5 months have drawn a lot of attention to this otherwise quiet block in San Pedro. So here's a look at this old GMC truck. Mr. Flores apparently is into classic cars and trucks, and you can see the front lawn, or the front yard, is not very well kept. There are weeds growing. There's also an interesting little assortment of goods. I believe under that blue tarp right in front of the door, there are some bags of concrete. I heard from one neighbor that Mr. Flores had in recent months been bringing concrete here and placing it on the porch right there. Don't have an explanation as to why, but as I'm out here, as I'm interacting with people, I am getting some interesting details about a case that's gaining a lot of attention nearly 24 years after Kristin Smart's disappearance. So if you'd like to follow along more reporting about this case, stay tuned to CalCoastNews.com, where myself and others will be posting articles about the Kristin Smart investigation, including what, if anything, comes into this investigation into Mr. Flores. So thank you very much, and goodbye from San Pedro. And as an addendum, a woman just drove up, and right when I finished said, "He ain't guilty and you should leave him alone." And then she drove off. All right, goodbye.